All right, going live here. And we are live. Now, one thing that's kind of unfortunate is that I can never know how many people are viewing the stream at any given time. I think what I might have to do is experiment a little bit. I've done plenty of live streams on here, and I'll go over what it is I'm doing in just a second. But just to kind of give you an update, I sometimes do live streams on Twitch, and I sometimes do live streams on YouTube. But I'm starting to think that I want to just move everything over to YouTube, just because of the redesign that YouTube is doing. Is it really facilitates that? So anyway, without getting into too much detail there, I'm probably going to be doing most of my live streaming here on YouTube now instead of Twitch. But today, what it is I'm doing is I'm basically going to get on Reddit, go to various Reddit programming subreddits, like learn JavaScript, web dev, maybe learn programming, etc., and just lurk and go through posts, answer some questions, maybe dig into some new tools that I see, interesting blog posts that I see about web development, and hopefully get you guys in the chat so we can have a good time. In fact, if anybody's watching right now, please send me a message in the chat right now just so that I can make sure that this is working properly, because of the setup I'm using is a little bit different than what I'm used to right now. So if anybody is currently watching right now, please just throw a message in the chat so that I can know that it's working as expected. And then I'm just going to go ahead and head over to Reddit in just a second. But I do want to make sure that the chat is working. So if anybody can just send a message in the chat, please. And see if I can send one too. Let's see. So I just sent one. It looks like it worked on my end. There we go. We got some chats. All right. So that's good enough for me to go ahead and get this ball rolling. So I'm going to share this screen here and probably zoom in a little bit. I think that is probably zoomed in enough. And let's just go through and see what's going on in the world. So why? Well, actually, I'm going to refresh because I've had this page open for a little while. I think I want to start fresh here. This is still the top post. So we have, why does it fails to pass case 2 and 3? Let's dive in here and see what's going on. So this is the Learn JavaScript Reddit. Let's take a look at their code. So the question is, why does it fail to pass case 2 and 3? So case 2 and 3, I'm assuming they're talking about these two console logs. Here we have a nested for loop situation that is called toSum, and it takes an array of numbers and then a target. And I'm assuming, so 5, 9, okay, what is this doing? In fact, if you're ever going to post on a subreddit like this, I highly recommend that you describe your code as much as possible when asking for help, because it's like this. Now I have to sit here and read this and figure out what this code is doing before I can even, figure out what the problem is. So just going to go through line by line and figure out what this code is doing. So they're initializing an array instead of a function. This function accepts an array of numbers and some target, which appears to be a number. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. They're looping through the nums that we're passing in. So for each of these numbers, they're doing something. Then they are going to do yet another loop. So they're looping through this list of nums twice. It is a nested for loop. And then if nums I plus nums j, so in other words, if, wow, so basically this is not easy to decipher, but it does look like what this is doing is summing up the array to see if this at all ends up adding up to be the target. So in this case 9, so 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10. That's not going to work. So 2 plus 3 is 5, or I'm sorry, 2 plus 1 is 3, 2 plus 2, yeah. That's what I think is happening here. You may not use the same element twice. You're not following that rule. Can you see why? Yeah, so this is just a case right here where I would say you should, if you're going to post on a Reddit asking questions, you should seriously consider writing some comments in there, or at least putting some description in your post about what the code is doing. Black Friday, Walmart, of course. How do I break out of this recursion? Backbone JS guidance. I'm going to find one that's interesting. If anybody sees one they want me to go back to, just let me know in the chat. Also, in the chat, if anybody is, I keep seeing this meme about Ash Ketchum from Pokemon finally winning. If anybody knows what that's about, please let me know, because I'm in the middle of a live stream and I don't want to look it up. But if someone wants to just tell me, I will gladly shout you out. I'm an experienced programmer trying to build my first website. Let's look at this one. This one might be interesting. I'm an experienced programmer trying to build my first website for my clothing brand using JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. But I have a few serious questions regarding the problems I might encounter while creating such a website. Since I'm building an online store, and users will have to insert their credit card information into the website, how can I protect my website from hackers that will just steal all the credit card information? Okay, so before I go any further on this, you're not going to be storing any credit card information, period. You should not be storing credit card information. And there's a specific certification, or it's not certification, it's a type of, I can't remember what it's called, but there is, at least in the United States, in order for you to be able to accept credit card payments on a website legally, you have to meet a specific standard. And that is actually, there is like a tiered system to that. Now, so to get by that, what you end up doing is using a third party, such as Stripe, for example, or Audion, for example, who's going to basically embed the form into this sort of iframe, and then you're going to use that on your website, and it's going to kind of communicate with this iframe. So this third party is going to be handling the payment processing for you. You're not going to do anything. You're not going to store any credit card information. You're not going to send any of that credit card information to your backend. Your backend will never see that information. It's just all going to be handled in this iframe form that, like, Stripe, for example, gives you. And then when the payment is complete, you essentially will get some sort of callback that you handle. So that is what they're going to want to use here, basically. And then here's the second part. So, or how can I verify that a user won't just find a glitch to skip the payment process and buy the item for free? So that is all going to be in your implementation. Right. So that's going to be, for example, first of all, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If you're building an online store, probably just use something like Shopify. I mean, seriously, they handle all of this for you. And then you can customize and add your own integrations and that sort of thing. Totally just highly recommend that you use something like Shopify. But if you're just set on building your own store from the ground up, again, you're going to have to use a third-party payment processor such as Stripe, but then you're going to have to, I would not automate the, unless it's a digital good, I would not automate the delivery of the item or the inventory. I would basically have it send you an email. So let's say they do the payment succeeds, Stripe tells you, hey, this payment has succeeded. Now that the payment has succeeded, we're giving you some sort of callback. So now you have code that is going to run when the payment has succeeded. And that code that runs needs to probably just send you an email with like an invoice of some sort that says, hey, this is the item that was purchased. This was the information they filled out in the form, so that has their address, their name, and their phone number and everything like that. And then you manually should go in and edit your inventory and send the item off after you review that email. So I would not go through the automation process, and I would not worry about that. Again, I would just use something like Shopify. There are so many things I'm scared of fucking up that can completely destroy my website that I haven't even taken into consideration. Also, I just cursed. Hopefully, YouTube doesn't take that down. But anyway, I don't really know the rules. And it feels so overwhelming. Is there anything I can do to improve the safety of my website to avoid exploits like those? So I answered my end. I kind of want to see what other people have to say. So, as someone who works on what is effectively a custom built e commerce site, do not custom build an e commerce site unless you can absolutely, unless your use case absolutely demands it and you don't have a better option. So, literally, yeah, like Shopify. So, exactly what I said. I'm going to upvote that because that's exactly what I just said. Um, Firebase has nothing to do whatsoever with what this person just said. I don't know why they're talking about Firebase. Firebase is basically a cloud content management system, sort of. It's a little more than that, but I wouldn't really call it a back end database. Firebase is like a server side solution. Yeah, I don't really know how to put that into words, but Firebase has nothing to do with this comment whatsoever. So downvote. If you want to build the site yourself, then by all means do, but don't build the payments yourself. Exactly. But mostly nobody does. It's a lot more than a single person can realistically handle. Agreed. And also there's a legal side of it. Like I said, use Stripe. Yep. PayPal or any other service that you like, let them handle the payment info, its security, etc. Then have people who do nothing but care about that. Agree. Payment gateway is not something you want to implement yourself. Yeah. So this is a pretty common thing. I feel like a lot of people want to build online stores for themselves, especially, I guess, especially newbies, because they don't understand the stack yet or how all of this works. So the best advice here is like, unless you are already a professional and you have a specific use case where you need to build the store yourself, please just use Shopify or whatever else. That's the only one I can think of right now. So let's go out of here. And if anybody else has a recommendation of a good subreddit for me to visit, even if it's not specifically like a learn programming Reddit, any type of programming related subreddit, let me know in the chat and I'll check that one out and lurk through there as well. Or also, if anybody has any suggestions of new tools or anything I can just look at here on the stream, let me know in the chat. Let's try to get this chat active because I want to be more interactive with you all. When I do live streams, it's usually kind of dead in the chat, so I want to make this as interactive as possible. Okay. Let's see. Coding exercise. Did I satisfy the conditions in one line of code? Write a redundant function that takes in a string and returns a function that returns string. Write a redundant function that takes in a string. Oh, that takes in a string called string and then returns a function that returns the string. All right. So the first one is a function called redundant. I wish they would have used actual like code syntax here. Yeah, kind of like this. So here we go. This is a function that equals a function. No, I'm sorry. This is a variable that equals a function that returns a function. He's calling apple, so he calls in apple. And then let's run this. Let's actually just straight up run this in VS Code. I've got VS Code up and ready to go. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can see. Let's just see what this is doing. And I'm going to actually make this syntax. I guess we could call this result equals. Let's see what's going on here. Because I never write code like this. So it's kind of, I'd rather just hands-on this. So, Thirsty Pooch, how you doing? Let's see what happens when we run this. So node script.js, so it returns a function, right? So what happens if we execute result? So keep in mind, what's happening here is this is returning a function. So when I call result, result is actually a function. So then we have to call result as a function and see what that returns. And it returns apple. So in my opinion, that actually, wrong button, that actually satisfies the thing. Oh, okay, so they edited the code. I was going to say, this seems to be doing what they wanted it to do. But it looks like that was an edit. I don't know if Reddit shows you anymore the edit history. Can't tell. But yeah, this definitely looks like it's working. Good on them. Why do I need to click twice to open this modal? This one might be interesting. Did you blink today? Yup. Okay, I clicked it once, nothing happened. Clicked it again, something happened. Yay. All right, this appears to be JavaScript without a framework. So I'm not even going to look at their answers. I'm just going to go ahead and figure it out myself and then look at their answers. So they have a check blink method that is hooked into this button somehow. So there's an on-click method called check blink, and then check blink is here. Okay. So what happens is when we click the button, this method is called. Okay, the first thing that happens is they're grabbing the modal div, which is this one right here. And you guys might have trouble seeing this, huh? So let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. It's kind of hard with JS Fiddle because it's already kind of small. We don't really need the CSS, so maybe I can let's just move all of this over. There we go. Hey, how are you doing, R3? How's your day going? Tell me about it. You learning anything new? All right, let's see. Okay, so grabs the modal div here, then grabs the button. I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. Glad to hear you're doing good. Staying safe out there? It's a crazy world, you know. And just think we're going to be in 2023 soon. We think we've seen it all, but who knows? I'm optimistic. I think we're going good places. So. Okay, so grabbing the button, grabbing the modal, this right here is grabbing all the spans, or grabbing everything with the class name of close. If we look here, there's a class of close right here. I do make tutorials from time to time, R3. The thing about it is I start to run out of tutorial ideas, honestly. And I'm going to get back to this in a second, but I want to answer everyone in the chat. I really want this to be a collaborative effort between me and you guys, and I want to get the chat as active as possible. So forgive me, I'm going to stop a lot and talk to you guys and continue this as well. But R3, you said I'm actually a big fan of your tutorials, and I'm a bit sad that you don't make tutorials anymore. So I've been running out of ideas lately, and kind of it's gotten to the point where I don't want to redo the same tutorials that I've done in the past. You see, you do one tutorial, and then web development changes drastically over the span of like 2 to 3 years, and so those tutorials are no longer really super relevant. Some of the earlier ones I've done, they're not super relevant because they were done in code that's just not, relevant anymore. It's the design patterns have changed. React has changed drastically. Certain things aren't relevant anymore. So I could either go back and redo those, or I could continuously make new ones. And there's just so many good YouTubers out there that do that. Like Web Dev Simplified is a really good one, that just constantly stays on top of that and is constantly doing these types of tutorials. I'm still always wanting to do educational content and all of that, but we'll see where it goes. And I should also accept ideas from you all because I'm running out of ideas. Someone said prank, but I can't prank budget Tio. Said succinct tutorials on ideas, then not specific versions of code. Right, but I think what I'm basically saying is like, let's say we do a weather app, for example. That was one of the first tutorials I did on this channel, was building a weather app using vanilla JavaScript. It's like so much has changed since then. So when I did it, sure, it worked really well and it got a lot of views, and that's really great, and it helped a lot of people, and a lot of people base their projects off of that. But then years later, I go back and watch it and I'm like, I would not do that the same way whatsoever. So I could do another uh, weather tutorial, or this is what I normally do. I come up with a different idea that's not a weather app tutorial, something completely different, but has the same sort of concept. So getting some information from an API and displaying it on a screen. Um, a lot of tutorials out there are bloated. I do agree. However, I I feel like what I try to do on my channel is the opposite. I try to get all of the bloated stuff out and just get straight to the content. But anyway, let me get back to this really quick. So they're grabbing all of the items with the class name of clothes, which in this case is I just saw it a second ago and then I distracted myself. Here we go. This span here. And they're grabbing the first one out of that array. I would have just used an ID. That's fine though. The close button, I'm assuming, is this little X. And then they're setting an on-click. Oh, that's really odd, isn't it? Oh, I see. So what is the Q1 button? Q1 button is the up. So they already have an on-click handler for this button, right? So I already see what's happening here. This on-click handler is check blink, and then inside of the on-click handler, they are setting another on-click handler, which sets the modal to visible. So really what they should do is get rid of this. So if we get rid of that, I think that pretty much solves the issue immediately. Yeah, well, let me just copy this and refresh, because it only works the second time, right? So I have the updated code. I click yep. I don't know if it refreshes it. Do I have to click play? Usually there's like a play button. But basically, apply changes. There we go. Okay, works good. Yeah, so basically, come to Dev Mentor stream. I don't even know what that is. Tell me more about it. Dev Mentor stream. I'll go to it. We can check it out. I mean, is this a live stream on YouTube? I'm not going to do that during the live stream. If it's something else, though, I'll do it like a blog, a website, or anything like that. I mean, I can check it out now. Would it be weird to go to another person's stream in the middle of a stream? Is that weird? While you guys answer that, I'm gonna actually continue going down this until. Yeah, I mean, someone answered that, right? Someone said that, because the first click, you're just running the function that registers more handlers. Correct. So yes, upvote. You are a good answerer. Grant rules. Grant rules. He's live streaming right now. Yeah, I'll I mean, let's check it out. Why not? Just for a second. Because this falls into the same thing. Dev mentor. Dev mentor. Dev mentors. You're gonna have to send me a link of some sort. Are they live now? They're live now. This is them. All right, let's see what's going on here. They don't seem to be live. This was live. No, this isn't the right one. This was 10 months ago. This is not the right thing. So, yeah, you're going to have to give me a link or something. Yeah, I know it's weird, but let's get weird. Also, what do you guys think about the metaverse? I keep seeing these Meta Quest ads. I have an Oculus Rift, or a Meta Rift, whatever you want to call it. The Rift S, and honestly, it's pretty cool. I love Beat Saber. I like some of the games. I like the ping pong game. But what do you all think about that? Do you think it's gonna be Zuckerberg's metaverse, or do you think someone else is gonna pave the way? Ooh, drop down menu. I'm trying to create a drop down menu for my project, and I'm kind of stuck. Some help or hints would be appreciated. Yeah. So Thirsty Pooch just did made a good point. They did just lay off a ton of developers, I think, right? Didn't they lay off like 3,000 employees? Second Life exists already. Someone made a really good point. I think it was Marquez Brownlee, or no, it was someone else made a really good point of like, why didn't Meta just buy VR chat and then build off of that? I mean, 11,000? I don't think they got rid of 11,000 employees. I don't. Let's find out. Wow. Nuh. Wow. Oh my God. I did not know it was 11,000 employees. Oh my God. That is insane. Is that the biggest layoff of all time? I mean, the company I work for has had layoffs. I'm not going to say names or anything, but it's public information anyway. So I've experienced it, but just 11,000 is huge. Yeah, that's a good point. If they all do it at the same time, it seems like, they'll get less hate. So if if everybody just does their layoffs at the same time, Google, Facebook, Amazon, everybody just lays off at the same time, it's like the tech industry is failing, but not that particular company. So you think that I mean, this is a short-term thing, right? Cuz if you look at the economy right now, it's crashing. It's crashing bad, but it's not like it can't recover. You know what I mean? I think a lot of startups and tech companies had predictions that it was just going to keep going and skyrocketing and skyrocketing, and they set their goals to hire a bunch of people and like build these teams off of the idea that it was just going to keep skyrocketing, and then it didn't. So they had to kind of adjust and lay off a bunch of people to kind of make up for that. But I feel like it's still going to go back up, which makes me think that with all the money that Meta is investing into virtual reality and also, all of the resources they already have. I mean, all of the data too, right? You would think that they're still going to continue to invest in it, and over the long term, I could totally see them. Um, could absolutely see them being the ones that pave the way for VR. But who knows? Maybe end of 2023, 2024 will be a rebound. Yeah, that's about right. I think about a little over a year from now, things are going to start to go back up. Totally a guess here. I am not an economist. I just know how tech works, and I know how, just being inside of these companies and seeing how it works and how they plan and how like fast they try to hire for growth. And that's the big thing is like all these tech companies hire for growth, and they just drive growth, and they're like, all right, so we want to be here in 2 years, so we're gonna hire for here now so that when we get here, we'll already have everything in place. And when they miss, you know, apparently 11,000 people get laid off. That's insane to me. The crypto thing is really interesting because I see a lot of really good use cases for crypto that are not necessarily cryptocurrencies, but everybody thinks when you talk to like laymen about crypto in general, they're just thinking Bitcoin and just this really abstract idea. But there's so many real life use cases for that technology that I there's no doubt in my mind it's going to be a huge game changer. Um, but I'm going to, oh man, 11,000 people. So to me, that's sort of like, I wonder if we can find some people talking about that on Reddit. So if we go back to Reddit here, I'm so zoomed in that I can't even. There we go. Let's look here. Meta. Oh, I'm still here. So let's say Meta layoff. Let's see what's going on. 6 months ago. I want to try to find people that have been laid off that are discussing this. Twitter might be a better place for that, probably. Interesting. Is React impacted by the Meta layoff? That's something that is actually a pretty interesting concept. I would assume that the people that got laid off were were like less of the engineers. This is an assumption. Obviously, I thought like 3,000 people were laid off from Facebook, and I was wrong. um, so I mean, I can still get technical, but right now this is kind of what I was wanting to do is just basically lurk on the internet and just discuss the current state of web development and answer your questions and um, React being impacted by the layoffs is pretty relevant, I would say. I don't know if that's the case, but let me get my thoughts out there really quick because so I can try to keep everything in line. Basically, the people that I would imagine mostly got laid off from Facebook are probably going to be like moderation teams and that sort of thing. Probably a lot of engineers too. But React is open source, so I don't know how much Facebook needs to put funding into that, but I do know that other companies would fund React. So I don't know. I really don't know how React fits into Meta as a company, like how their team operates, honestly. That's an interesting question. React is too tied to their entire business to drop. That being said, I'd love it if they dropped React in favor of web components. Um, how much of Facebook is built using React? I mean, I feel like none. Like what is there's probably a lot of things that Facebook operates or Meta operates and uses internally and externally as well that is built using React, but I I I mean the actual application that everybody uses every single day is I'm pretty sure not React. But it might be. Um, iOS development. I've done some iOS development, but honestly, I'm I'm a big fan of React Native. So you know, build once, run everywhere. Let's go to React GitHub. Let's investigate this. How is all of this tied to Meta exactly? I mean, I know that React is a Facebook product, or it was initially. See, Facebook open source. Okay, so Facebook open source, or now Meta open source. It looks like React needs to update their docs there. But anyway, so Meta open source. Interesting. So let's go to about. So Meta Open Source's mission is we believe open source accelerates the pace of innovation in the world. That's a very Mark Zuckerberg thing to say, don't you think? He always talks like that. By anyway, I'm sorry. By sharing our code, our stack, or even our hardware designs, we're moving the industry forward while giving other companies and individuals a chance to use our platform to scale more quickly and build great products. You know what this really means? What it means is they're like a snake. They're trying to sneak up on you and bite you. Basically, if Facebook can own all of the platforms that other developers use, then everybody's relying on Facebook. It's like a weird, sneaky form of monopolization. But the way that they write it is it's like they're trying to be the big brother, the heroes of the world. But I think it's 99% just money and greed. But I mean, that doesn't mean good things don't come out of it. I love React and it's an amazing tool. And a lot of the things that Facebook builds are helpful. It's just the way that they present it is so fake. um, 'Cause, 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 Yeah, Facebook didn't make React. Okay, so who made React? Interesting. So if you, this is where I'm at, right? So you go to React docs, Facebook open source is listed on there. If you go to their GitHub, I don't know if it really mentions anything specific about Facebook. I mean, it is at least under Facebook's GitHub. So if you go to React, it is under Facebook's GitHub. Um, what about Meta? Type in Meta. Is there any? Okay. So going back to this, there's this Meta open source kind of, I guess, organization who has a very sneaky mission. And then Meta is built on open source technology. Yes, I agree with that. Of course they are. Meta open source and industry. That doesn't really, so far, it doesn't really describe like how this organization operates or in what way are they actually tied to Meta. You know what? I don't know. I just have to be honest. I don't really know the exact. Um, I mean, let's go to, if we go to Twitter, Dan Abramov, I remember he was on a specific team, or still is, I think, on a specific team at Facebook. It's not listed. May have to go to. He did. Dan Abramov definitely did not make React, but I know that he works on a team at Facebook that works on React, and that's what I'm trying to find. But I don't see any information listed right now. Hopefully, he was not one of the people that were let go. That would have been insane. Okay, still says, yeah, so Dan Abramov, I know who actively works on React, does work at Facebook. I don't think I'm going to be able to find my answer right now. I'm going down a pretty crazy rabbit hole. Yeah, so Agent091 says Dan Abramov is working on React's adoption of web components at the moment. Right. But I'm just trying to figure out what the team is and if they were impacted by the layoffs. But that seems like a rabbit hole that is going to be a little bit deeper than I was expecting it to be. I mean, just so many companies rely on React. Even if, let's just say hypothetically, Meta just gets rid of their team that works on React actively, I wouldn't be too worried about it. I feel like the amount of companies and the amount of money that relies on React, someone would acquire it, and it would be fine. All right, so back down here. Let's go to web dev. See what's going on. Yeah, we should all just stop using React and just go back to using jQuery. Ooh. User errors. Are we dealing with idiots? Okay. I've got opinions on this. Our users can make genuine mistakes. Let's see how we can use their feedback to increase their autonomy. Oh, I just hate how a lot of software engineers think of users as like not human. Or like you own them in some way and you're just trying to control them and funnel them into some sort of flow. It's just, I mean, I get it, but so we tend to think our users are dumb. Okay, that first sentence, I don't think my users are dumb. I disagree with that statement. I'm sorry. We are tech support developers, product designers, and entrepreneurs. We use various memes to express that conviction. Problems exist between keyboard and chair. I mean, this got a lot of upvotes, so let's take a different view of these PEBCAC issues. My starting point is a lean concept called respect for people. So is this guy seriously basically like having to go out of his way to say let's respect the people that use our apps and try to write okay. So for example, this error code here. So it says we can apply these concepts to our customers too. Back in my example, I wanted to insure my bike. How could the startup website's developers have increased my autonomy? Let's revisit the error message. So here we have just a typical error, unknown error. We have no idea what happened. We're just going to display that we have an error. And here is a better error that says payment declined. The card details you entered appear to be wrong. Please check your banking app or website as they may indicate why. If the issue remains, contact us at this email address. This way of thinking should permeate the whole product and not only the design of error messages. The challenge becomes how do we turn user errors into opportunities to increase user autonomy? I like this concept. So first of all, I'm just going to go ahead and say that like a lot of the times, at least in my apps, if I build something and then you see this error, it's because one of two things. One, I just was too lazy or just didn't think about handling a particular error case. And that's basically just like a fallback where instead of the app breaking, we just show, hey, there's been some sort of error that we just didn't handle. The other reason that might happen is in a case where we don't want to, like, let's say a login form. Let's say we don't want to allow users to just randomly type in emails and find somebody's email as an active user on a website. So let's say there's some website and you know somebody's email and you type it in. It's not your email, it's someone that you know. And you type it in and it says wrong password. Well, if it says wrong password, then now you know this person has an account on that website. You know do you get what I'm saying? So in certain situations, you really do want to make errors as broad as possible so that you can prevent bad actors from, getting more information than you want them to get. But those are the only two reasons I can think of. Otherwise, you should handle the error and provide a really good error message. So Agent 091 said the dev world has a lot of men with a superiority complex, hence those types of comments. I think I hear that a lot. I have not personally had that experience. I think I've had a lot of luck with where I've worked, where the people that I've worked with have been very respectful. But I do know that I hear that that's a problem from a lot of people. So I don't discount it. I believe that it exists for sure. I just don't see it personally. And again, I find myself lucky because of that. Please don't advertise Punk Momo, but thanks for the vote of confidence. What are they doing? Some of the previous React core team are working in Vercel. What is the advertisement that Punk Momo made? I don't see the... Ah. Oh, I see. There was a lot of chat, so I couldn't keep up with all of it, and I was kind of ranting there for a second. Sorry about that. So 24-hour streaming React and JS. I'm actually streaming watching Port because I was just recommended to him, and I am here to support him. So I asked some of my peeps to join us here. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully I can provide more entertainment. And if you have any suggestions or different things that we can look at, let me know in the chat. I will gladly go to that. I find it sad that this article exists just because it shouldn't be a problem in the first place. All users are idiots. I love the Reddit sometimes, I swear. But don't forget, all users includes us as well. We tend to have an inflated sense of our abilities while diminishing the power of unfamiliarity. All humans are idiots. Ooh, so negative. I don't think all humans are idiots. All right, Agent Zero, have a good one. All right. All right, let's find something else here because that one was just full of such negativity. Intersection observers. I love intersection observers because there was just so much stuff. So if you don't know what an intersection observer is, and I might butcher the description here, but basically it's the idea of like you can tell when something appears on the screen, right? So let's say you have a long web page and you want to run some sort of code when something appears on the page or something is about to appear on the page even. You can use intersection observers to very easily do that. And there's a lot of cool functionality that you can do. And I remember, I think I just heard a dog barking. That might be my dog. There was a lot of stuff that I had to do in the past, like, I don't know, 2014, that I had to code this manually. And it was such a huge pain. ES build alternatives, why use things like that? Alternatives to ES build? Well, let's look at a list of ES build alternatives. But yeah, highly recommend anyone who has not yet worked with intersection observers to, I don't know, can I post? No, I don't want to do that. Definitely go check that out because it is a fun tool to use. So Webpack, obviously, but I want to see a list. Gulp, Browserify, Rollup. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, Vite, V-I-T-E, Vite, if you know what that is, uses Rollup while Create React App uses Webpack. I might be totally wrong on that, but right? Am I right on that? Vite can be extended using plugins, which are based on Rollup's well-designed plugin interface with a few extra Vite-specific options. So it uses both. I'm assuming it's using Webpack. Look, to answer your question, Punk Momo, you said ES build alternatives. Why use things like that? Well, honestly, if let's just take Webpack for example. Webpack is probably, I might be wrong on this, the most popular JavaScript build tool in the world. It's got a lot of really powerful features. It's built to be as fast as possible for what it does. It's not the fastest, but for what it does, it's the fastest because it has such a, so many things that it can do. And I can't remember the term right now, but there is I think it's called module federation, which things like Snowpack don't do. And I'm literally researching as I say this because I don't want to say something wrong. Does it do that out of the box? According to this, unbundled sites module federation is to solve problem. Files can be loaded individually on demand in production. If you bundle your site for production, then you should use Snowpack plugin Webpack, which is powered by Webpack. So again, we're falling back to Webpack. I don't know how to answer your question, the prank and punk, because it's just kind of like, it depends on the use case. And yes, you can ask a Next.js related question. You absolutely can. Although I haven't been keeping up with the latest versions of Next.js. I just haven't been using it as much. Ooh, another e-commerce question. I always recommend, look, if you're going to build your own store, please use Shopify. Just use Shopify. Oh, if you already have a site and it's on something like WordPress, that's a different story. But I think Shopify has a headless system anyway. Commerce.js, what's that all about? Okay, so it's sort of like a headless commerce platform. So the question is from R3, I have an admin dashboard route and I'm coding it right now. Why does the page refresh every time I make a change? So I'm assuming you're talking about something called hot reloading, which means that whenever you make a code change, your development server is going to pick up on that change. And when you save your file, it detects a code change and then it refreshes the app. So that's hot reloading. Hot reloading Next.js. I think you can turn it off if you want to. Let's see. Disable. I think you can disable it, right? Fast refresh had to perform a full reload. This is in the console. Let's see. Fast refresh had to perform a full reload. This is in the console. Excuse me. You can customize Webpack's config to probably do that. So that did not work. Oh. So am I understanding your problem right, though? It's when you save, the server will refresh and then your browser will also refresh. Is that what you're talking about? You want to disable that? This was 2021. I'm sure they have solved it since then, right? Scroll to the bottom. The server doesn't refresh, just the page refreshes. Well, yeah. It reserves the page, essentially. So in that thread, it doesn't look like that was solved. Here we go. No. How to enable hot reloading. So fast refresh is really what they're calling it. Fast refresh. Next.js disable. Enabled by default. So enabled by default. So is there a way to disable it? Of course, that's not going to be easy to find, is it? I've never wanted to turn it off before, so I've never tried. My assumption is that something in the next.config file, like if I was a developer on Next.js, I would provide a way to do it there. Stupid things in the way. Yeah. Any Next.js folks watching might have an answer for R3. How to disable fast refresh. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done that. I've never wanted to disable that feature, so I'm unfortunately not able to help you there. Something I could dig into, though. I don't know if you have a Twitter or something I can reach out to you. If I figure it out, I can let you know. All right, down here, front-end candidates and job applications. I always love these. These are my favorite. Anybody going through rigorously applying to jobs as first-timer without real-world experience or relevant degree. I was there. I know a long time ago, I got my first programming job, and I didn't have a degree. I had no professional experience. I basically had to start from the ground up. If so, would love to connect with you all, and let's be there for each other in difficult times like this. If you have been a self-learner and applying to jobs, you know how difficult it is without relevant degrees or experience. It's probably harder now than it was a couple years ago, for sure, because layoffs and hiring freezes. But I know that when I first got into the industry, I basically learned everything that I knew off of Reddit, Code Academy, and YouTube videos. And I just went around and basically pretty much just went to local businesses, local bars, people that I knew had businesses, but really didn't have a huge reason to invest in a website. And I would say, hey, look, I'll just build you a website for free if you'll let me. Like all you have to do is buy the domain and I will do all the other work. And I did that for a little while, and then I just did as many free projects as I could. I found like local organizations that were doing things like community outreach and saying like, hey, I can build an app that would automate some of your processes and I won't charge you anything. That way I could just have something for my portfolio. I did all of that for like a year, 2 years while I was working a different job. And then I finally built up enough confidence within myself to, you know, start putting in applications, even though I knew I didn't have anything to put on my resume. So basically, I would just always emphasize, hey, like, this is my GitHub. Just check out my GitHub. Don't worry about my work experience. Just look at my GitHub, please. And and that's basically how I got my first job as a programmer. Navigating the hype-driven JS front-end development world without going insane. Was that on there? A video on this. Navigating the hype-driven JavaScript front-end development world without going insane. um, is that like a suggested title for a video I should make? I think that's a good idea because I do feel like if you're new to JavaScript and front end web development in particular, like it wasn't like this with things like Python and C sharp and stuff. It was just not to this degree. Um, I would say that front end development is probably the most hype train driven anything I've ever seen, even more so than things outside of careers. I mean, um, I think the biggest thing you should probably do if you're diving into this world and you're seeing all of the like there's something that YouTubers do all the time where it's like best development tools of 2021, like best development tools of 2020. And at the end of every year, they try to predict what are going to be the biggest topics of web development the following year, etc. And let's say there's 10, like 5 or 6 of those are going to be the same every year and they're going to slowly dwindle off. But then there's always like 4 or 5 that are brand new that you've never heard of. Um, so it's just constantly changing and it's all built around hype. But in the end, the one thing that I have found that's always stayed the same is just learning and understanding the basic fundamentals of how it all works. And I'm not even talking about JavaScript. Like I'm talking about, do you know how cookies work in the browser? Do you know how networks operate where sending the request from the browser to a server? Do you understand the basics of HTTP, that protocol? Do you understand from a very high level perspective, what the internet looks like? Those are the things. If you can understand all of that and then kind of dig into JavaScript, which doesn't change as drastically as things like React and all the frameworks of the world, those two things, it won't really matter. The hype train no longer matters because it's like a new tool pops up. Oh, that looks cool. Let me take a look at it. You read a blog post on it, watch a YouTube video on it, maybe read the docs for an hour or two, and you already have an understanding of fundamentally what it does and whether or not you're interested in it. And if you are interested in it, cool, bookmark it. If you're not, then don't think about it again, Um, do ooh. As a React dev, I feel very lost in trying to understand WordPress and CMS in general. Please, ooh, this is an interesting concept. It's usually the other way around. As a WordPress website builder, I'm having trouble understanding React, but this is the opposite. That's funny. So number one, is a headless CMS a backend? Kind of. And I'm also not showing my screen. Kind of. A headless CMS is a content management system without a front end, but it can have a front end, right? It can have like an admin front end, right? where you can like, let's think about Firebase for a second. If anybody's used Firebase, if you watch my tutorials, you probably used Firebase. Um, you interact with it in the code. You build your own front end for it. However, if you want to go in and change the data or give someone access to it so they can go in and add new tables and add new items to storage, etc., they can log into like this admin panel and do that. So really, it's just a way to manage content, whether that's like database table entries, images, files, whatever. But in a way where you don't have to, like, you can provide your own front end. That's what a headless CMS is. If I use React in the front end, can I still use a CMS? Okay, I think I just answered that. The answer is yes. If the answer to 2 is yes, this is like they're predicting my answers. All right, then are there any pre-made web user interfaces for these CMSs? Or do I have to write the custom UI myself? Do these CMS themselves come with one? That's a very interesting question. I'm assuming there are. I'm assuming that people have gone out and built like, cookie cutter UIs that you can just hook up to a headless CMS, but I don't know why you would do that. You would just want to use a headed CMS, right? You would just want to use something like Webflow, Wix, which I hate to even say, but that's basically what they're asking for, I think. Number 4, if we talk about images, is a headless CMS better than uploading these images directly to a service like AWS? Well, it depends on your use case. Are users uploading images? So if you have an app where users are going to be uploading images, yeah, you would want to use a CMS. But if you are just serving static images to the web page, there's no reason to use a CMS. You can just host it on a static service like even Imgur. What is the ideal use case for a headless CMS? I already answered that. And what is the ideal use case for WordPress.com? So that right there is actually an interesting question because I talk a lot of crap about WordPress. WordPress is actually a pretty good CMS to use for many different use cases. For example, let's just say you have a very small business where you do photography or you own a restaurant. WordPress is perfect for that because all you're really doing is uploading some images, displaying some information about your business. You might have like a contact form and you're going to want really good SEO. And WordPress is perfect for that. Absolutely perfect. Now, if you suddenly want to be able to provide some sort of custom functionality that's like not really often used, and I'm not talking about like a blog, I'm talking about something custom, something truly like a solution for your customers built into the website, you're probably going to want to not use WordPress, obviously. You still can because I think you can do PHP and custom JavaScript and everything with WordPress, but then, I don't know, it's just better to build your own at that point. Punk Momo says for 5 and 6, trying to highlight it, it's the client paying the money. Well, can you elaborate on that? What you mean by that? Because I still feel like it's more of a use case driven decision and not necessarily like a client pricing driven decision. I mean, I can understand like if they only want to pay you $100 or something, just like some small amount of money for a website, you probably don't want to build it yourself unless you just want to do that because you're going to be putting hours and hours and hours into that, and really you'd be working for like $4 or $5 an hour by the end of it. But with WordPress, you could get that thing booted up in like 2 hours. So in terms of like money cost ratio, WordPress is going to do it. A lot of good answers here. What else do we got? This looks like exactly the same thing we just looked at, right? This is almost the same. Well, it's similar, but basically the concept is like, let's try to write better error messages. Let's not say, hey, server error, something went wrong. Oops, sorry. That is actually a pretty big deal in web development right now. I feel like a lot of websites, even big ones, are doing that. But I mean, it's so hard to catch every single scenario, right? Man, I don't know if I want to read all this. What I want to do is find. I heard someone talking about a video up here. That's what I want to do. I want to go check this out on here. Like, I don't know what the rules are of YouTube. If I can watch somebody else's video on a live stream, if I'll get booted. It's okay if it's not monetized. I really don't care about that. I just don't want the stream to get booted. But let's see if I can scroll up on the chat. I'll bring it up. No, it wasn't that. "24 hours streaming React and JS." That was, he was in here, right? Yep. He's doing Next.js right now. He might be able to help you with Next.js specific problem. Oh, I don't know. Are they streaming right now, or is it just Mark video? Mark video? What's the Mark video? Or Kites? Which one? First one who names it and gets me there is the winner, and we're gonna just watch that one. It's just so vague. Like I need, what do I type in on YouTube to get there? Got to give me something to work with here. What is Kites, by the way? What is this? Mark? I don't know who Mark is. Is that the username of someone that was in the chat? Like, here, I'll in the meantime, I'm looking up Kites. I believe this is who Prank was talking about. Let's look. See if we can find a good one. Oh, that's his name is Mark. 24 hours React and JS. That's his name is Mark. Okay, sorry about that. I was really confused. I'll get that in another tab here. Is that their YouTube username? Is that there we go. Mark's gang. All right, we're gonna have both of these up. All right, cool. Let's start with Kites. I'm basically going to be analyzing, trying to give someone a shout out, some of these YouTubers here. Converted my old garage to a smart Wi-Fi connected one. I'm hoping to find something a little bit more, you know, web dev specific. Not seeing anything like web dev specific. It's a lot of like hacking and unboxing. Yeah, I don't think there's anything on here I can click that's too relevant. Sorry. But here's what I am going to do. I'm going to keep this and check them out. All right, so this is Mark. He either is or just was in the chat.
Or in the stern where the actual shit should be, like the motor and the transmission and the batteries. It was all water for mine, and I had a bunch of water up front so that I could use my fresh water to even out the boat for when I was passaging. Right? Go out on a 4 or 5 day trek.
Is that a bong?
good shoes. Do not wear
Dev Motor Live.
bad shoes. Go to an army
Don't wear bad
surplus
shoes, yeah.
store and
Good
get
call.
yourself some army surplus shoes, some boots, the ones that lace up. Take them home, throw them in a hot bath of water or just a bucket of hot water. Hot water. Let them sit there for a day until they've cooled off completely. Take them out, let them dry out on your feet. It's gonna sound strange. You're gonna walk around for like a day with your army boots strapped to your feet and your legs. Not super tight, but tight enough. And those things the leather will shrink and will form to your...
We're gonna go to Dev Mentor Live, same person, probably slightly more relevant content. Here we go, higher order functions, benchmarking your JavaScript speed. That's a nice short one. No, I like this one. Let's do this one.
Millions find a low-cost health plan at healthcare.gov so they can enjoy more visits and have less to worry about. Feel like a million and find your plan during open enrollment. Healthcare.gov is here for millions.
Make sure to get your health
like
care.
you.
If you're applying for front-end JavaScript jobs and you're
It's might be
doing
too
tech
loud, huh?
interviews,
Turn it
you're
down just
probably
a
getting
little bit.
code challenges.
go.
This is going to be solving one of those code challenges in just under 6 minutes. So make sure to watch to the end. And if you have code examples that you've been given on job interviews, then hop on the Discord and let me have them so that maybe I can do a video from your code example. Let's get right into it. This is a real code challenge given to a job candidate during
So it's supposed to
an
return
interview,
17, 5, and 2.
and the candidate did not get a callback from the company.
A function that returns a
In
number
this
each
video,
array
I'm going
if it
to
is
show
larger
you
than all
exactly
the numbers
why,
to the
line
right,
by line, they
or
were
if
not
it
impressed
is
by the code.
the
setup.
last value.
Here is the solution given by the developer, and our first step is to run it to make sure that it returns the right value.
Ooh.
So because it has that console.dir in it, we can just run the file with
Isn't this a
node,
really good use case
and
for
then
like
we
a
see that yes, it returns
recursive function?
1752. So the candidate got the right answer, but they didn't even get a callback from the company, much less a job. Why? The first red flag for me is this variable assignment right at the beginning of the code. My rule
I
is
agree.
always use const and only use let when you have a very good reason, usually something to do with closure.
I mean, to me, that's not...
Variable reassignment makes code very hard to read, and const
That
will
doesn't
prevent
equal not calling them
reassignment.
back, but
It won't provide
a red flag.
immutability, but it will prevent reassignment.
it just shows me that they might
The
not
next thing
fully
that I
understand
don't like about
the
this
difference
code
between
is
const
that
and
the
let.
algorithm works backward, which violates the principle of least surprise. Now, it may be that there's performance optimizations.
Principle... I'm going to pause that for a second. Principle of least surprise. I've never heard of that. Principle of least astonishment proposes that a component of a system should behave in a way that most users will expect it to behave. Okay. The behavior should not astonish or surprise users. How does that violate that rule? Okay, I'm going to let him continue, but I don't think...
by reversing it, but I don't see that here. It's just now it may be that there's performance optimizations by reversing it, but I don't see that here. It's just somebody working backward for the sake of working backward, which makes the code hard to understand.
I don't know if
The
that
next thing that stands out to
principle
me
of least
is the
surprise
use
is
of the
super
imperative
relevant.
loop. Looping makes
Uncle Bob
a lot
era.
of sense
I love
in
Uncle
very
Bob.
specific circumstances, usually game development, where you have some sort of a frame rate that you're trying to keep to, and each loop is essentially a segment of time in the game. The reason that loops are not preferred is that they mix the logic of the actual iteration, the looping, along with the work to be done or the business logic. So it jams those two things together. This is an example of over-nesting. Everything inside of the for loop is all wrapped up inside of this if statement, which means that everything has to be indented over further. If the conditional was just flipped around, then we could use a guard clause, and then we don't have to have all the extra nesting. The one that really gets me is this reassignment. Reassigning values makes variables extremely difficult to track.
That
over
explains
time,
why
which
they
means
used
when
let
you're
instead of
reading your
const.
code, it'll make your code much less clear,
So
because you have to keep in mind of all the different variables,
just
and
gonna
all the
point that
different
out.
states as you read line by line. There's a reason we invented computers, because they're good at that, and we're not. So I wouldn't be doing any sort of reassignment in my function here at all.
I agree with that, though.
Then the author of this code reinforces
You just return
their
a new array.
backward algorithm by using a push here. If they had switched to an unshift, which would have put it on the other end of the array, it would have fixed the backward nature of the algorithm. But because they use a push, it's going to be popping it onto the end. And then when we actually are printing the thing, we're going to have to reverse that array to get it back into the right order, which also violates the principle of least surprise. Give
Okay,
us
now I'm
the
going to
value
go
that
all the way to the end to
because it's
see what
rounded.
his
React
solution was.
coding into.
So his solution is, I like the idea of using filter. Absolutely. Okay. There, this is an efficient way to write it. These one-liners are great. However, this is about on the threshold of what I would say is like acceptable for a single liner. I know that a lot of people like to do super complex single liners because, it might be easier like while you're thinking about it, but then you go back and try to read it and you're like, okay, what is this doing? But this is right on that threshold of where it's acceptable, in my opinion. Like anything more complex than this, and you should probably think of a different way. But this is, in my opinion, perfectly acceptable. What do I think on the topics? The topics of what he was mentioning? Well, looking at this, I mean, at first he was mentioning like he shouldn't be using const here. I agreed, but then later on I realized they were doing reassignment, which probably explains why they were using let. But I agree. He shouldn't have been reassigning values there. So I agree with that. I don't fully agree with the principle of least surprise. I think that's a different concept, at least what I'm reading here. This is from like a user perspective, not a code perspective. Maybe somewhere in here there's like a different version of this for like algorithms, but yeah, like the principle of least surprise appears to mostly be just kind of from the perspective of the end user, and this has nothing to do with that at all. So I think that's not relevant. Yeah. Yeah, so Jeremiah Quill agrees. Yeah, I think this is an acceptable one-liner, but I see some crazy ones sometimes and like mixed up with like regular expressions and just crazy reduces, and I think it's cool to do, especially if you're doing coding challenges on something like Code Kata or whatever that thing, Code Wars. Um, but should not use that in production code or send that to someone who's interviewing you. This, on the other hand, is good. I think it's fine. Just to clear that up. Cool. Yeah, I checked them out. I'm gonna have to check this person out at a different time because this just isn't super relevant. They're doing a lot of hacky stuff, which I like to watch on my free time. Mint, a new framework, huh? What? A framework to create beautiful documentation that converts users. What is that about? Mintify.com. So this is backed apparently by Y Combinator and all of these other people who I do not know. Build the documentation you've always wanted. Beautiful out of the box, easy to maintain, and optimized for user engagement. All right, show me an example of something built with this, if you don't mind. It's not free. Pricing. The pricing, there's a free tier. You get full access to the documentation platform for a single project. All guides and API components are free. User edit requests and feedback is free. Integrations with third-party analytics providers is free. Click on Showcase. Let's just go with the first one. Let's not pick favorites here. We'll just go in order. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Dark mode included. Can't complain. Search functionality good. Let's type in something we would, what is this? Like, I don't even know what I'm searching for. Proto 3 compatible RPC framework. Hello. Okay. This is the type of search that I like. This is great. This is great. And it's super fast. That is crazy fast. I mean, let's look at another one. Oops. Get out of here. There we go. Explo. Yeah, so it's pretty cookie cutter. That's the only issue that I see. None of I don't know how much customization is available. Um, they all look exactly the same, which isn't a huge deal because it looks great. I love the way it looks. Looks like a little bit of some customization here. They have some custom buttons. Probably could have done without that. I think it looks better without that. Yeah, for the most part, they all look exactly the same. So, wonder why it got downvoted. Why did it get downvoted? Someone said, "I'm sorry, but can you just explain what it is and what it does? How does it write documentation? Why did what do you?" It took 5 seconds to figure that out. I don't. What do you mean? The people on Reddit are so needy. I mean, I'm one of the people on Reddit, so, but, I mean, seriously, you just go there and it literally tells you what it is. I mean, I wouldn't have found it, at least today, if it weren't for this post, you know? Yeah. Reddit is sometimes very nasty. You know, actually, there's a funny story. I'll tell it now. So there's a programming Reddit called Learn Programming. Learn Programming. All 3 of my accounts have been permanently banned from Learn Programming because the moderator of that Reddit does not like me at all. And it's really interesting too, because everybody that comments on the posts that I make there loves the content I post. I mean, seriously, that's how I got my start on YouTube. Is I would post the videos that I would make on Learn Programming. I would do a huge write-up and say, ask me any questions in the comments. I will answer them, and I would do it. I would get hundreds of comments, and I would respond to as many as I could. And it started getting marked as spam, and I was banned from Learn Programming. So I messaged the moderator, and I even remember like going on the comments, and everybody was like, "Why was this? I can't comment on. I can't see this post anymore. Blah blah blah. This was really helpful, but blah blah blah. Whatever. Didn't matter." The person that moderates Learn Programming basically said, "Hey, this is spam." And I reached out to this person like 5 or 6 times, and each time they're always like, "Oh, you again? No, you're go away before I get you permanently banned from all of Reddit." So yeah, I've had some pretty lame experiences on Reddit, but also some really really great ones too. So I don't want to just say it's all doom and gloom. I mean, seriously, like if you go on these Reddit pages, you get tons of people just helping people out and not asking for anything in return. It's pretty nice. But it is also very toxic at the same time. It's the best and worst of the internet. Freelancers, how do you end the work with your clients? So I have done some freelancing, and so let me answer the question in the chat really quick. So someone said, Punk Momo said, "You know Bucky?" Oh, I do remember Bucky. God, it's been so long since I've seen a Bucky video. That was a huge throwback. Thanks for reminding me about Bucky. Long before he used to make programming videos, he was banned on programming subreddit, calling him names, and his videos are not helpful. It's funny. Bucky was one of the very first people I would watch on YouTube. The New Boston. I think Python. I want to say it was like Django and Python, and maybe Bucky might have been the first big programming YouTuber. I think there was Bucky, and then there was Derek Banas. You guys know Derek Banas? I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name correct. It might be Banas or something like that. Derek Banas. Let's see when his first video was. He's an OG
hello,
too.
internet, and
Oh, new YouTube design. how to filter by, oh no. Can you not sort anymore? You can't sort anymore. Well, I can't sort, but I can do most popular, and you can see that there's some from like 10 years ago, 11 years ago, 11 years ago. So Learn JavaScript in 30 Minutes came out 11 years ago. And then the New Boston, if we go to there, I just want to see who came first. The New Boston videos.
What's up, guys?
Popular 13 years ago. So we have a winner here. Oh, wow. Is that Windows Vista?
We joined the Wix Partner Program, and our company absolutely exploded.
What's going on, everybody? It's Bucky, and
that
welcome
Windows
to your
7 or
very
Windows Vista?
first Java tutorial. Now, in this tutorial, before we
Craziness. Thank you for unlocking that memory in my mind. I appreciate that. Okay. Do you write documentations to teach them how to maintain, running, and modify the website? That's going to depend. A lot of the times when you contract with a freelancer, that's going to be in your initial contract. I would say if it's not in their contract, don't do it. I mean, unless you want to. But there's no need to go the extra mile if they're not going to pay for it. I mean, that might sound harsh, but look, it's one of those things where it's like they're using you, and they're probably going to make a lot more money off of whatever it is than what than how much they're paying you to build it. So you need to understand what your worth is, and they should not just expect you to go and do a bunch of extra work for free. Now, if they paid you really, really well and you just feel like doing it for them, by all means, please do. That's just my 2 cents. If it is WordPress, it would be simpler, but what if it is a static site? Do you teach them to use VS Code? Absolutely not. So right out of the box here, and again, unless they're paying you to do that, I'm not going to teach somebody specifically like one-on-one how to code as part of building them a website. That's just not something I would do. Not to end the work. Yeah, that's a good strategy right there. Is like a lot of people will basically never end the work, and they'll just continue to pay them every 6 months, kind of like a contract, like a renewing contract. And then as soon as it stops, it's like, all right, you stop working, and then they just have the product however it is at that given time. That's a pretty common way to do it. Subreddit had a clear rule asking not to post New Boston video. They did the same thing with me. I swear. Like, I'm not lying. I could even go and show you the messages on here. It's somewhat tempting. I'll pull them up, but just to not dox anybody else, I'm going to pull it off the screen for a second. I'm going to pull up the messages that I have with the person from... I'm so zoomed in, I can't see anything. Hold on. Bear with me. Messages. Can't remember how to view messages on Reddit. There we go. That's chat. So chat and messages are different. It's been a minute. Inbox. There we go. That was harder than I thought it was going to be. All right. As soon as I find it, I will pop the screen back up, but I don't want to display all my personal messages on the internet. I'm a mod on a couple of Reddits, so I get a lot of mod newsletters, so I'm scrolling through all of these trying to find it really quick. Um, would this even be in the main inbox? It might actually be more like in some sort of like mod mail, or I might not be able to find it, guys. Sorry to waste your time on this. Oh, there it is. Okay, hold on. I found it. I'm just trying to find the beginning of it. I got kind of an attitude, honestly, with them, but this was about the 7th or 8th time this had happened, and I thought what was going to happen. Basically, they ended up banning me, and I ended up saying something kind of rude back. I said, "You must have a personal vendetta because this is literally ridiculous," and I do feel that way. I feel like for some reason this person does not like me, and it seems that way. It really does. Um, then they said, "Not you again. We have told you the reasons. We have had this discussion several times already. Nothing will change. How many more times do we need to explain this? This has been explained to you in every single of the communications with the mods here. And that is exactly what you had way overdone. We've told you that several times and you ignored it. You were not helping people with their problems in their threads. You were just throwing out your courses and tutorials. The majority of your comments in the subreddit was in your threads. You violated our rules, you got banned, you stay banned. End of discussion. Any further in this thread and in the future will be reported to the Reddit admins." I just was so upset because I was basically like posting a video teaching somebody how to do something about programming, and then I was going into the thread and like helping every single person with their specific code, because it's really hard to do that on YouTube comments. So I would just tell people to go to the Reddit comments. So I would help people on Reddit instead of YouTube, because you can, Reddit has way better formatting and everything for code. And so I was basically like, every time somebody would have an issue trying to copy my tutorial, I would go in and basically help them. And tons, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people were getting help. And yeah, apparently that was just unacceptable. Yeah, I think they probably don't like anyone. I agree. Do you guys, so curious if anyone what are you guys' favorite video games? I know lately I've been playing Rocket League. It's kind of cheesy. I played Factorio for a while. I don't know if you guys ever played Factorio. I played I mean the chat is so small and my screen is way over there, so sorry, I'm trying to read it. It says, "I lurk at experienced dev." Let's go there. Experienced devs. I don't think I've ever been at this one. Pokemon on Nintendo Switch. Which one specifically? On Switch, I play a lot of Mario Kart. I played the new Kirby. I played Mario Odyssey. That was fun. I've been playing a lot of Crash Team Racing. I don't know. Have you ever heard of Crash Team Racing, CTR? Sword and Shield? That's the newest ones, right? I think that's the only generation I have not played yet. I played the generation for Switch prior to that, and it was no, I did play Sword and Shield. That's right, I did play it. I just have not beaten it. That's all. Okay, so if you're a Pokemon fan, can you please tell me what everybody's talking about with this Ash thing? Like, I've seen everybody all over my feed. I haven't looked it up yet. Everybody keeps saying Ash finally won. He's finally the best. Well, what are they talking about? It was something like 20 years later, Ash finally won. The Champion League? Let's see. Wait, that's old news. Oh, here we go. 11 hours ago. Here we go. Oh, he finally won. Oh, man. Maybe now he can finally age. He can finally age. I like this subreddit because it seems like mostly what people are talking about are like career stuff and not necessarily technical things. This is more like specifically career stuff. Literal tears. 22 years into a programming career, and I feel like I'm at a dead end. Oof. Before I even read this title scares me. I mean, just imagine, like, how many years into my career am I? I feel like if we just talk about like actual professional career, I think like 7 or 8 years in for me. Um, I've been senior and staff, and I don't even imagine like how do you hit a dead end? I feel like you should be after 22 years of being in programming, you should be rich. You should be you should have made a ton of money, invested all that, and be retired. Oh man, ASP. I have done ASP MVC before with C Sharp, and I did not hate it. Actually, when I was a complete noob, this was before my professional career, so this must have been like 2014 or something like that. I was learning ASP.NET MVC before I got into Angular, and I loved it. I would hate it now, going back to it, because the more you know, the less frameworks you need. And MVC, ASP.NET MVC is like the framework of all frameworks. It is so frameworky. So I try to stay away from that at all costs. Um, so 46 years old, 22 years into the career, feeling like they hit a dead end. Sounds like they mostly are a ASP, um, Visual Basic type of programmer. I can see why they might have be a little concerned right now, but with that much experience and knowledge of how the career in the industry works, you'd be able to just learn some JavaScript in like 6 months, a year, and be right back on track. Um, Favorite Pokemon game was Fire Red. My favorite Pokemon game was probably Pokemon Trading Card Game for Game Boy Color. How many years experience in total? So I have two separate things, right? Because I was before I got into my professional career, I was doing a lot of like free stuff. I was doing a lot of coding and stuff for years prior. I put some games on like Google Play Store and all that. Um, and then years later, I became a professional software engineer. So professionally, 7 years. I've been a staff engineer, but that was a staff front end engineer. And right now I'm a senior full stack engineer. So I took that dip down because I really didn't know much about back end engineering, at least not on the level that I do of front end engineering. So kind of took a dip down, but it was for a good reason, and I'm really happy with my decision. But overall, probably about 9 years. I need a post on experienced dev. I read a post on experienced devs. He had a confession saying F-typed languages, loves dynamic lang like Python and JavaScript. See, I do consider JavaScript to be a dynamic language. However, I just did a presentation recently on how JavaScript really is actually an object-oriented language, just not fundamentally. So you can do both. You can do dynamic, or I'm sorry, I'm thinking functional programming. I misread that. It is definitely a dynamically typed language. So sorry for the confusion there. But yeah, on that topic though, JavaScript is both a functional programming language and a object-oriented language because originally it was a scripting language, right? That was made specifically just to make web pages slightly more interactive. And then people started using it for other things. And they were like, well, we kind of need it to be able to do this, and we kind of need it to be able to do that too. And so they needed to bring some OOP fundamentals into it. And then you started to get things like prototypal inheritance and that sort of thing, where you could start to build classes, just not with the nice syntax. And then over time, years and years later, we finally got the ability to write classes in a way that people are familiar with, like if you came from Java or C# or something. And now, very recently, you can officially write like private classes and private variables and private methods using just a hash symbol, which is very, very helpful. Would you use JavaScript on the back end? Yes. Yes, I would. In fact, whenever I do my own project, if I'm building my own back end, I'm using Node.js. So typically I'll probably use something like Next.js with server-side functions, but that's just going to be like basically Express.js anyway. But yeah, favorite Pokemon game? Pokemon trading card game for Game Boy Color. Any book suggestion around JavaScript? I have a video. Have you seen my video on the top books I recommend for JavaScript? I would change some of them now. Oopsie, youtube.com. I would change some of these now because this was made a couple years ago. Port exe books. Yeah, this one.
When I found out that Google.
So the books that I recommended were HTML and CSS JavaScript and jQuery. Obviously, I would not recommend that anymore. It's pretty outdated. Let's see. I'm going to go to where I'm actually holding the books up. Come on. Hold the book up. So the first one I wouldn't recommend anymore. That's this one. If you've ever been to a bookstore looking in the code section, you've probably seen this. Don't really recommend that one anymore. It's a little outdated. This is a really good book. It's not super educational. It's called Code. It is very educational, but it's not like a programming tutorial book. It teaches you the concepts of software code in a way that applies to the entire world around you. It's one of my all-time favorite books. It's absolutely amazing. You should definitely check that book out if you've never read it. How Linux Works is another one. How Linux Works is important because a lot of the things that you're going to be doing in web development is Linuxy type things, even if it's just Bash. But you kind of want to understand Linux to be able to have a confident career. Eloquent JavaScript is the #1 book I would recommend on JavaScript. Not if you're a true beginner, but if you are basically like, you understand the fundamentals of JavaScript and you want to now take that to the next level. Eloquent JavaScript is the best book, hands down, for that, period. Then Beginning Software Engineering. This is a really good book about all of the things surrounding like the industry, all of the things in software engineering that you might want to understand that aren't specifically code. Yeah, and that was all the books I recommended there. There's a couple of books now that I would recommend in place of those, but I can't think of them off my head. They're in a different room, and I don't want to walk over there. John Duckett has published a new book on PHP. I never got into PHP. I tried it. I think it was like New Boston days, Bucky days, and I watched like maybe a tutorial on that and tried some Laravel, and then I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna try Ruby on Rails instead. And just never revisited the concept of PHP. I mean, nowadays I would still just, I mean, I could be wrong, but I didn't think PHP wasn't good. It's just, I just never revisited that for whatever reason. Although I've heard a lot of people say that PHP is super powerful and very, like, probably better than using Node.js. Could be wrong, but here we go. Software developer with 3 years of experience, currently 25 years old. Initially, I used to love my work. I used to be intrigued about a lot of our systems and used to read docs and code. It was fun writing code, developing new features, even if they were small. But for the past year, I have not been motivated to work. And the worst part is, I am now a senior in the team and would need to work on bigger features with a lot of ambiguity. So I need to analyze the problems, propose different designs, expand on those, and deliver them. All of this feels too much to do. Life was fun when I was working on smaller features. For all the investigations, designs, etc., I give deadlines to my manager when I would finish those, but I'm often finding myself missing those deadlines. I am alone working on building a microservice and designing the component which uses it on the Android client side and get these reviewed with senior engineers, 2 engineers. I'm delaying those reviews, which in turn delays the whole deadline. I think I am delaying because work doesn't feel as fun and challenging, or no one is there to work together and discuss openly. I am looking for suggestions on how I can stay motivated and meet the deadlines. If anybody else experiences this, like if you're out there and you experience this, I think this happens to everyone. The things that keep me motivated are small wins, things that I'm actually interested in working on. And if work isn't giving you that, like let's say you're at work and they give you a bunch of things and you don't like working on it, take a little time out of your free time, or a little bit, even cut like an hour or 2 off of your work time to work on something you are interested in. You need those small wins and that fiery passion to continue in order for you to be motivated to work on the things that you don't want to work on. If you only focus on that, if that's the only thing you're working on, it's going to be impossible for you to stay motivated. The best thing ever as a programmer is when you have an idea, you write it, and it actually works. But when you spend 7 days working on something that isn't working as expected and you have the pressure of these deadlines and such, it's not fun. It's just not. And so you need to take a little bit of time out of your day to do the things that are fun. It's kind of like a reset. But I do feel like that is a huge, huge problem in the engineering industry. You need a job, punk? Yeah, I think a lot of engineers need a job right now, unfortunately. Um, I don't know anyone hiring right now specifically, but my suggestion to you, if you really need a job, is like, I mean, what do you do? Do you do back end, front end? What's your expertise? The chat, just there we go. It sounds like you're probably a back end engineer, if you're talking about PHP, but the link you commented, I don't see a link you commented, unfortunately. It probably filters it out. Yeah, I don't see any links, so it must have filtered it. You'll have to send it a different way. Unless you were talking to the other person in the chat. um, I'm just trying to wait for this response from you. Before I'm Y Combinator. All right, I'll search it. Is this it? I currently have. I'm gonna zoom in. What? Okay, I currently have 10 fully remote engineering jobs. The bar is so low, oversight is non-existent, and everyone is so forgiving under performance. I can coast about 4 to 8 weeks before a given job fires me. Currently on a $1.5 million run rate for comp this year. And the interviewing process is so much faster today. Companies are desperate. It takes me 2 to 3 hours of total effort to land a new job with thousands to choose from. Yeah, no big deal, guys. Just working 10 different jobs at once, but not actually working. Just walking over into my living room, laying on the couch and watching YouTube all day. Please don't do what this person is doing. Yeah, I mean, cool. They're making millions of dollars, and it really is on the lack of ability of these companies to like do the proper vetting. But don't be a douchebag. Yeah, it is a thing. I've been hearing of a lot of people doing this. I've been seeing a lot of YouTubers talking about how they're holding 2 to 3 remote jobs at a time. And then like another job will find out and then they'll get fired, but they're trying to do it as long as they can. This is absolutely a thing. I've never seen 10. That's crazy. But I've seen 2 and 3. I mean, if he's really making $1.5 million, all he has to do is pull this off for like a year or two. And then he can pretty much just like buy a house, buy a car, and work one job and be fine. I hate it when they say remote when it's US only. Um, I mean, all right. Well, thanks for the fun time, Punk Momo. I'm probably gonna hop off here as well. It's been fun. Have a good one. One thing I'm gonna say before I finish up, though, if you're still on here, Prank, in response to your. Oh wait, that was Punk. He's probably gone. So, but I'll still say it. I know a lot of these companies that hire remotely, they hire globally, or at least in several different countries. So it's not just a US problem. All right. Talk to you later. Have a good one.